Hello, welcome if you're new here. My name is Lorena and I'm a self-concept and manifestation mentor. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I am happy that you're here. Today we're going to talk about repeating cycles, patterns, and breaking patterns and cycles. So we'll talk a bit about why patterns and cycles repeat over and over again. And I know it's what a lot of people are dealing with, right? Finding themselves in cycles of back and forth or the same patterns, the same things repeating over and over again in their relationships or in their work or in other areas of their lives. So we'll talk a bit about why that happens and what you can do to learn from them and to break them. So maybe you have experienced this as well, or you're currently experiencing this. I feel like pretty much everybody has patterns and cycles that repeat over and over again, especially if there are some subconscious beliefs that are really deeply rooted, or if there is something in your self-concept, some perception that you have about yourself that keeps showing up in different ways or in similar ways over and over. Maybe you keep dating the same person with a different face. Maybe you keep having the same experience in relationships. So for example, I sometimes work with people that over and over again get cheated on. That's not their fault, but why does this continue to happen? Or I sometimes work with people that over and over again do not receive commitment from a partner, or people who end up in the same work environments over and over again with the same dynamics in their job. Whatever it is, if you have anything where you're like, why does this keep happening? Why does the same thing always happen to me, just maybe in slightly different ways? What is that about? Then this is for you. So as I already touched on, every pattern that you experience is in some way based on your self-concept. So what you experience is not necessarily what you directly assume to be true. That's like a very, very basic interpretation of the law of assumption, which I don't like to follow because it's not necessarily a conscious choice. It's very often very subconscious and almost always related to the way you feel about yourself and the way you perceive yourself and the image that you have of yourself. And your self-concept, your self-image, your identity very often also isn't conscious. It's very, very frequently subconscious, or rather, there are conscious parts and there are subconscious parts, and the subconscious parts are the parts that you will struggle to break the most because you're not fully aware of them. And even if you are, you're not fully aware of why they're there or how to break them. As humans, we always subconsciously try to confirm an identity that we have of ourselves. Our ego always tries to be right, always tries to confirm beliefs, even when they're harmful, even when they're painful for us. Our ego wants to confirm any belief that we have about ourselves because it means that we're right. And being right is really good for the ego because being wrong is similar to an ego death. Right? Like the ego does not want to be wrong. The ego always wants to be right. That's really important to know that most of this is subconscious. So the fact that the same patterns repeat for you, the same cycles repeat for you over and over again doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. And because it's subconscious, shadow work is so important. Shadow work is a big part of my work and what I do with my clients for that reason, because it's so important to get to know your subconscious, to build a different relationship with your subconscious, because then you can really integrate all of these pieces and they can make sense on a very embodied level for you rather than just intellectually in your mind. So to give you some tips on how to deal with repeating patterns or cycles, tip number 1 is already what I said: do shadow work, practice shadow work. Dive into your subconscious. And sometimes people either misunderstand what shadow work is, so they don't really go as deep as they think they are going. I see this very often when people tell me, yeah, but I know all of these things from my childhood and I still can't change them. But then you're not really doing anything with the awareness that you have. And it's really the changes that we need to make in order to actually break the cycles, to break the patterns. And when it comes to shadow work, there's also a lot of conflicting information on the internet and a lot of misconceptions about it as well. And sometimes people are afraid of any healing work, any shadow work, or even inner child work because they feel like that means that you're in an endless cycle of healing and you're just diving into the darkness and staying there, when really that's not what it is at all. Really what we want to do to break patterns is to make the unconscious conscious, to really understand why these patterns are there without any bypassing, without any denying, to really figure out what the benefit is for us in having these patterns, because there's a benefit. Otherwise, we wouldn't have them. They wouldn't repeat. They serve us in some way. And through doing shadow work, through making the unconscious conscious, through getting to know your subconscious, you can really take your power back and integrate these different parts of yourselves to get to a place of more embodied wholeness and more perceived wholeness as well. Like you're whole all the time, but sometimes it doesn't feel that way. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to understand that any repeating cycles, any patterns that repeat are not punishment. You're not being punished. And I know it can sometimes feel this way. If the same thing happens over and over again, and you even come to a place of awareness or understanding, and the same thing happens again or happens in a similar way, and you're like, what the hell? Why does this keep happening? What am I doing wrong, right? But it's not punishment. You're not doing anything wrong. Your reality and the patterns you experience are a reflection of your state and of your self-concept. That is true. But it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It's just feedback. It's just a sign that you need to make a change if you want to stop experiencing this. So it's not the kind of feedback that means something is wrong with you and you're doing something wrong and something's terribly wrong with you and you need to be punished. That's not the feedback. It's more like a nudge that says, this doesn't seem to be working. Maybe we need to do it a little differently. So when you're experiencing the same thing over and over again, it is a sign that you're doing something or embodying something or feeling or being something that keeps calling that in. So there's definitely an element here of taking radical responsibility, but without the self-blame. And again, that's really why shadow work is so important and why it's such a big part of my work, because then you can figure out what that something is and start choosing differently. Because if you do the same things the same way and nothing changes, nothing changes. If you change nothing, nothing is going to change. If you keep trying the same way or keep making the same choices, nothing's going to change. Everything is going to stay the same and the same cycles are going to repeat again and again until you learn the lesson. Patterns that repeat over and over again are teaching you a lesson, and they're only going to stop when you learn the lesson, whatever the lesson is. Which brings me to the third point, which is to start relating to the same patterns differently. Any pattern, any cycle that we experience only changes when we start responding and relating to them differently. That's when they break. They break when we make different choices. They break when we not only see the lesson, but actually integrate the lesson and act differently. They break when we stop fighting them, but instead learn from them and react in a different way. And what exactly that means for you personally, what exactly that reaction or that choice or that response is for you personally, I can't tell you. Because all that depends on your circumstances, on your state, on your being, on your story, on everything that's going on with you directly. So there is no generalized answer for this. But know that once you stop resisting the pattern, but instead you take the lesson from it and you choose differently, it's going to break. So I would love to know from you, if you wanted to leave me a comment, what pattern would you like to break in your life? What is a cycle that just keeps repeating over and over again that you want to change? Maybe we can even get a conversation going in the comments and you can all support each other and I can support you too. And I also have a Facebook community, by the way, which is also open for you to share and to seek support and guidance. Feel free to join that also and to share in there if that feels more comfortable for you than sharing publicly. If you liked this, if this helped you, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to share this with somebody who can use it. It absolutely means the world to me if you support this channel, if you spread the word. It enables me to continue putting out free content as well. And those who would like more personalized support, who want to dive deeper, my coaching program, Recreate Yourself, is currently open for application. And that's a very intimate, high-touch coaching container where we dive really, really deeply into your self-concept, radically transforming it, ensuring that you experience a transformation where you wake up every damn day loving your life, loving the reality you've created, and loving who you are. If you'd like my support, send in your application before spaces fill. And if I think you're a match for the program, I might be working with you very soon. Have a wonderful day. I will see you in the next video.